realize that anybody would tell them what length to make a picture, but the exhibitor at one point saying 6 minutes or 540 feet. The layout immediately says, boom, if they can't be more than less than 6 minutes, they can't be more than 6 minutes. So the directors had to time the picture. We never edited any of our films, ever. It all had to be put out and it had to be completely timed before it went down. You couldn't overshoot 5 feet, because 5 feet might cost you maybe $85 or something. It didn't drop let's do that. So the way it worked was that the director there would work with the historian, in my case, Bank Maltese, most of the time, and most of the I wrote when I get to it. On Ray Bradbury's 55th birthday, somebody asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. He said, I want to be 14 years old like Chuck. So any evidence that I have achieved any maturity is purely happenstance because your eyes are perceiving. So now this meant that we had to learn a very arcane and very peculiar profession, and that was timing. So what we did, I worked with Mike Maltese, and we thought we were terribly put upon because each director had to do 10 pictures a year. Chris Freeland, Bob Hughes, Tex Avery and Clement left around 1946. So all the pictures from that point on were directed either by Chris, by Bob Hughes, and me. So we had to learn to do this and to time the entire film out on Chris worked on bar sheets, I worked on exposure sheets, and I would do 300 to 400 character layout for the film. At the same time, when the storyboard was completed, now our writers were not really writers. I mean, they were good gag men usually, but they couldn't draw very well. So the storyboards were very, very rough. So when they come to me, I figured they may be half finished. But I've been working with Mike for all that time for 5 weeks, and then I went through in 5-week increments. It would be 5 weeks of direction, 5 weeks of story, 5 weeks of layout, 5 weeks of animation. And so after the war, I inherited Maurice Noble, who was one of the greatest layout and possibly the greatest that ever lived. Not only because he worked so beautifully with me, but because he also did the mushroom sequence in Fantasia and the pink elephant sequence in Number, which is magnificent. That was all animation. When you look at that, you realize there's no background? Yeah, the whole sequence, no background. When it was a boat because there was water flying around. And it was, they were skating because there was reflection against the black. And everything was determined. When it was out in the desert, it was because the elephants became pyramids. Isn't that a brilliant thing? It was just marvelous good stuff. And he did a lot of the inspirational work on Bambi too. Wonderful man, good sense of music. So the way I worked with him was that when the storyboard was complete, we would move the whole board, which is, in our case, usually came to about 150 single drawings. And storyboard. We'd move the storyboard into the room, and then I would start to lay out the characters, like call Maurice and tell him what the story was about, like Duck Dodger in the 24th and 19th century. It's not my field. I don't know what that future city should look like. And I want him to tell me, right? One of the basic rules I always had was that everybody that worked in the unit could do his job better than I could. And that wasn't very difficult because I wasn't terribly good. But I've been an animator, as indeed every one of the directors that developed full animation, including Disney's, with only one exception, not Virgil Lem, one of the others over there. Everyone had been an animator. So that's where they learned their timing. And so I'd leave him alone about a week or 10 days, and he would go ahead and design the discipline that was involved with him was, this is a story about duck dodgers in the 24th and 19th century. I don't want you to go off and do it. I want you to do, if you're going to put in visual gags, which he did, it has to apply to that picture. You're not allowed to run off the mouth. You've got to stay within that. Now, on Duck Dodgers, it wasn't terribly difficult. But he invented the thing where like you step in and disappear. They disappear and then they appear someplace else, which is a perfectly good way to get an airplane. Vaporizers or something. So you walk in there and then you disappear and then you cut to the airport and appear again. So that was Pace's gag. Then he went ahead and designed that huge Pace vehicle. And that's all very well. You look at it and say, yeah, that's fine. But the thing is that nobody had ever done one before. There wasn't any such thing. I mean, this is 10 years before anything was built at Cape Canaveral. He developed, he drew the thing. And that's what I noticed a lot of things that you guys are doing the same thing. Ray Bradbury says that the future is always determined by what the artists do in the previous generation. These guys don't come up with artistic ideas. I mean, all I'm sorry is that they didn't make a gantry crane the way that Maurice Noble designed it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. The only thing we didn't know about it is we figured that, like all rockets that would take off quickly, it never occurred because they'd start so slowly. And that's nonsense. I think they slow up the camera so you see it that way. It's obvious it takes right off. Everything else. You got to, because they want to be able to say that Pentagon. Look how slow it takes off. No. So then when I finished 300 or 400 drawings, and now I'm editing films because I took George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. I'm a Spielberg drawer because I made a drawing for his little son. Anyway, he loved our films, and he used one of my pictures in Sugar Land Express, and one based on an experience that I had. You may remember in that picture, if you ever saw Sugar Land Express, that there's this couple in a stolen car followed by like 30 police cars, and so they take refuge in an RV park, and they go in there and they climb up on that back, where the bed is in the back, and there's a little window across. And to go back so you understand how I got this was that we went down to many years ago. We were down in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was a 2-story motel, and it was just getting dark. And we went up to the room, and so I went over and pulled the curtain up, and there was a 30-foot Bugs Bunny right outside the window. God's hand coming over. God! Bugs Bunny, I couldn't hear him, of course. It was driving theater, but it scared the hell out of me. It proved this big, even with big screens. So Spielberg liked that, and so the little boy and girl in bed up there, they look out through the window, and sure enough, it was the Coyote and Roadrunner. So being a good director, he realized, as we all must, when you come across a good situation, you just wonder, what else can we do? Because he thought that was startling. But when they looked out, they thought it was being young and happy and in love. They said, that's great. It was all designed. So he starts. So the boy then realizes they can't hear him. So he starts doing all the sound effects. When the bird would go beep beep, he'd go beep beep, and then he'd get the slides whistle and the sound and just the dope and everything. And so then in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Duck Dodgers were playing on the television set, and when the kids were there, and father went nuts. And I never quite understand that. They never quite explain this guy throwing dirt into his own living room. But I guess it worked, and everybody accepted it. Spielberg throws dirt into a living room, everybody should get out and throw dirt into their living room, obviously. So, but in this editing, the 300 or 400 drawings that I have done come back to the